Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create, just focusing on wet technique for our sky. And so what you want to do first is you want to have like a kind of a large flat brush. Be great. And we're going to use that, and we're not going to have anything drawn on our paper. We're actually going to do that all with water. So the first thing I want to just do is get my brush kind of wet. And my brush is still going to be pretty wet. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw my line. And the directions in on the Schoology site are going to be a little bit different, but that's okay. So focusing on, I like to draw that line first a little bit. Now I'm going to get a color for my sky. So I'm going to use some blue. Kind of make that. Maybe I'm going to go for some purple too. Add some of that in there. Alright, and I'm going to take this and I'm going to work right over top of that line that I had drawn. So you can see, because it's wet, what kind of happens there. Alright, so then what I'm going to do is I'm also now going to add a little bit more water to that. And now I'm going to work on picking up some other colors. So we're going to think like this is like a sunset or a sunrise, something like that. So I'm just going to pick up more straight colors. So notice I'm not trying to like blend them on my palette. I'm just picking up that straight color. And I like to then take water. I actually like to paint my paper first, really. The assignment tells you not to do that, but I like to paint my water first. So I'm actually going to, or my sky first. So I'm actually going to do that. So I'm just right now wetting my whole paper. And I like to do this because this forces the color to run and to bleed into each other, and so we don't get hard lines and stuff like that. So now if I want to add my yellow, obviously I can. So let's just say there's some yellow over here. Work on adding in a different color yellow too. So now if I want to work some of that red that I have, there's two different reds, I can add that. And so you can see right now what's going to happen is it kind of looks a little weird for sure, but because I'm now just taking water on my brush, and again I like to just work this all together. I'm going to keep just using again that little bit of water. So right now we're just kind of making this up. If for instance I was painting something like the Northern Lights, where I had like colors running, what I could do is I could lift this and I can get them to bleed, like you can see right there. That's starting to happen. For now though, I just definitely want to make a little bit more color in the bottom of my sky. Maybe even make it a little darker down there. Purple's a little intense, so let's tone that down. So let's just say I made that really dark, right? And everything else isn't. So if I just add a blanket of water right there, and now I can kind of let that run, you can see what happens. So again, this is a great test for you. So again, try doing some different things. So I'm just going to hold my paper up now. And I want more of that pink magenta color. I think that's really pretty. I'm going to add that there. And again, I'm going to just grab water now on my brush. Let those colors kind of just work together. And again, if you make it something too dark, you're just going to take that water. So I could also turn it, and I can have that run down the whole length of the paper, as you can see. But for now, I want that just to work there. Add a little bit more yellow into the top. Let that kind of work. So this is just called wet on wet, and this is just going to allow your paints to just work together. And again, it's pretty messy, so this is why we want to just focus on this for the day. So again, and if you have a lot of excess like that, you can just kind of knock it off. I'm going to knock it off into my water. But again, I'm just going to let that work. Now I want to have that kind of blend a little bit more with each other. So I have something like that. So let's just say now I'm pretty happy with that. But let's say I maybe haven't really, maybe I want to lift something up. So I have a paper towel ready. And you can also dab if you don't like what that color is doing. Stuff like that. So I can kind of pull. If you wanted to make some clouds in yours, you can kind of just start to dab that up some. And you can see how that can turn to clouds right there where that's lifted, which is pretty nice. But if you want to keep yours, you don't have to work on adding in clouds or anything like that. And you can see, again, as it starts to dry, kind of looks a little bit, and that just adds a place for us to put those in. However, while this is still wet, what we want to do is we're going to switch our brushes to something more of like a round brush now. And we're going to add in some trees. So I'm going to get my brush wet still, just because it's always a good habit to get into. But these trees are going to just be pine trees. So you'll see that we really actually don't want to draw trees in with watercolor, really, because it just makes it really, it makes it too awkward. So we want to just kind of think about, these are going to be background trees. So that's kind of starting to dry just a little bit. So I like to just work background trees in and kind of a back and forth motion. So again, these are just in the background because this is hopefully wet enough. They start to dry a little bit lighter. So as we work. And if these kind of blend into your background while you're working, don't worry about it, because again, think about your background with trees and stuff like that. Anyways, they kind of do that. They're not really clear in the far distance. So that's kind of why we like to put these in at first as well. And again, you can see my trees are kind of just more blobs than anything else, but I like to go back and forth, and I kind of just keep it random. And I'm just picking up more of my green color that I have along the side. And you can decide how many trees you want to do. You don't have to do 3 on each side. You can do 4. You can make some of them taller, some of them smaller, that sort of thing. And again, this is still wet on wet, so everything is still kind of wet. My side over here is drying a little bit, probably because I lifted it up. So if I wanted it to blend out a little bit more, I just have to wet my edges, which is just what I'm doing. And by wetting those edges, you can see that color kind of starts to dissipate some. So if I don't want those to be so bold, that's what I have to do. You just wet that, which is going to make them a little bit bigger. That's okay. I can fix that in a later step. And so you can see how that kind of starts to turn out. So if I want to come back over this one, for instance, that I had lost, if I just add some of that in. And I like to make a dark green when I do this, so I'm not just picking up straight green. So it's green. I like to use blue. I like to use a little bit of brown and purple in my trees too, as I paint them in. So I'm going to work this one in. Now because it's wet, you can see how, again, it just starts to basically fade itself out into the background, which is great. Exactly what we want. We want a little hint of color there, but we don't really want to see them fully detailed. So if I want to add in a couple right here, maybe on the far distance, that sort of thing, I can do that. Okay, so that right there is essentially what we're going to have when we are done for today. Just a wet on wet technique with the sky and with our background. And right now, if you aren't really crazy about your sky, don't stress, it's okay. I don't really like this one, but it'll work for now. But again, it's just learning and understanding the technique. If you have edges over here like mine that aren't painted, again, don't worry about that at all. You will have to work quickly. This isn't something that you can work slowly on, because the paper will start to dry and then your trees will start to be way too noticeable. So again, you kind of want them, just as you can see that these are kind of fading out and just drying with the background. That's kind of what you want.